I'm live right now. Hey, you guys, listen, it's me one now. So dream it, believe it, become it. Come on down. But it's me as we're speaking about the late, great Earnie Shavers, one of the hardest punches in boxing history. This is a really brief one. There was a glitch on the show for some strange reason. So you guys got up at 7 o'clock, but it wasn't 7 o'clock. Nobody was late. I'm doing it by myself because, Tundi's in camp and the yard. His specific days are only going to be on the Sunday. So I'm doing the show by myself. Big up James Morris for telling everybody at the time when the show was going to go out. Balfour, big up. It's a special show, Kieran, simply because this was one of the, if not the hardest heavyweight hitter of all time. Muhammad Ali famously said about Earnie Shavers that he hit him so hard, he judged his kinfolk in Africa. But he said that a lot of the times, but at the time when he got ready when he fought Ali was actually at the tail end of his career. But that was actually the last fight in 77. That was the last fight that Ali actually worked with his Ferdy Pacheco. Late show, big up yourself. That was the last time that Ferdy Pacheco actually worked with Ali, because after the fight that Muhammad Ali had with Earnie Shavers, to do the simple test of shutting your eyes and touching your nose, Muhammad Ali couldn't do it. That was also to the reverberation of all of the fights that Ali had prior, but Ali got visibly shaken in that fight, even though he won on points. This way you have to realize that the greatness of Muhammad Ali, even though we're not talking about Ali, we're talking about the greatness and also the fact of the passing of the great Earnie Shavers. What are we trying to say out there? Big up Spence on this show is Real 100. Thank you very much. I'm trying, Kieran, to be real, my brother. The thing about this, I was very fortunate to I met, what year did I meet him? He did an exhibition over here with a guy, Stuart Maximus, who runs Maximus Memorabilia. He did an exhibition over here, and this must have been about 15 years ago. He did an exhibition. In the exhibition that he did over here, even though he was Stuart Livermore, was the guy's name that he did the exhibition with. And Stuart Livermore's father was once the strongest man in Great Britain, used to compete with Jeff Capes. And I remember there's a group of us that all drove up there, right? And yep, Steve Bailey, 100%. The great man, Earnie Shavers, he had 64 wins. Now check this one out. 78 by KO. 78 by KO. So he was more than just a great human being. He was a really, really prolific puncher. 1 second, I'm just checking something now. Which actually got nothing to do with the show. Yep, 1 second, please forgive me. Yep, absolutely prolific puncher. The thing that got him the shot at the world heavyweight title. Yes, Bobby Wright, big up my brother. Thank you for jumping on. Yeah, I mean, and showing love. The thing that got Earnie Shavers, he shot at the world title. The first time out, he fought a very dangerous man called Roy Tiger Williams. Adrian Waters, he actually passed yesterday, Adrian. He actually passed yesterday, and I weren't too sure on what, because I know that he came over, he lived over here. He was living in Liverpool for a little while when he came over here, and he was like a celebrity greeter to certain nightclubs. So he'd be the guy on the door, but it'd be like Earnie Shavers on the door. And he actually got married over here as well. He got married to a Liverpudlian lass. So if we look at the fact of what the things that Ernie did throughout his career, when I'm talking like he was a prolific puncher, I'm saying that he was an absolute prolific puncher. Right, who was that? I see something up on here. Who have I got as the best pound for pound, Shavers or Julian Jackson? Oh, that's a good one. That is a very, very good one. I think Julian Jackson's prolific KO of Harold Graham, I think that was December of 1990, was one of the most vicious things I've ever seen. But when I look at how how Ernie Shavers dismantled Ken Norton when they fought, makes me kind of sit down and think like, there were different kind of punching power. But I would say that dealing in the heavyweight division, Ernie Shavers was one of the most prolific punchers there was. Julian Jackson was a brutal knockout artist himself, so it's kind of like a toss up. But I would kind of go with Julian Jackson on that one to say like, right, Julian Jackson was the guy. Hi, Miss Ringside, how you doing? That's what I would kind of go with. I would kind of go with that one. But I remember like in, what was it, 1982, I would say nobody could manhandle Joe Bugner. Like a lot of people look at Joe Bugner and they don't realize just how good this man was. Joe Bugner was a very, very good boxer. You know what I mean? He was a Hungarian immigrant that lived in the UK. Joe Bugner could really box. And Joe Bugner was yet again on another comeback trail. And it was in 1982 in Vegas on the Don King show. And Joe Bugner boxed against Earnie Shavers. And Ernie Shavers dropped him in the first round with like an uppercut, cut his eye, and get stopped on a cut in the second round, I believe, right? But if you look at that and you think to yourself like, right, how Ernie Shavers was, he wasn't a very big man. He was only like 200 pounds, 210 pounds at max. But how he carried his hands, he carried his hands. He carried his hands pretty cool, like he like the telephone. You know when we say like, oh, for the telephone technique, he had his hands here carried like on the telephone, and he would jab to the body. Something that seems like it's a lost art today in heavyweight boxing. We don't really see guys jabbing to the body or jabbing forcefully to the body, but Ernie Shavers would jab to the body hard. Ernie Shavers had it was like an arcing right hand that he'd throw downstairs to the midriff. The guy could punch. Yes. Boxing Hub, how you doing? He could box. You know what I mean? He could box, but sometimes he'd get drawn in and he'd have fights. And if he did have the fight, sometimes it wouldn't go his way. Right? But the standout fights for him, and anyone who's on here now, go and watch his fight with, what's the guy? Roy Tiger Williams. And the reason why I'm saying go watch this fight with Roy Tiger Williams, Alexander Wilson, thank you very much. Julian Jackson said that Graham was beating him up, and Joe Coulson said to him that he was going to stop the fight. And Jackson threw a Hail Mary that landed. He did throw a Hail Mary that landed, and Harold Graham was out before he even hit the canvas. It was one of those kind of things. But you got to remember, Julian Jackson was getting beaten by Harold Graham before he landed that shot. Harold Graham was handling him. But the story is this, and I remember the late, great, thanks for putting that up on the screen. The late, great, must be Tunney that's doing this behind the scene. The late, great Brendan Ingalls said, like, at the end of round 2, Harold Graham came back to the corner and his front teeth had been knocked out. So in order to keep his teeth in place, he had to push the gum shield up in his mouth to hold his teeth in place. That's how hard Julian Jackson hit. That he punched out Harold Graham's, about 3 of his top front teeth. Punched them out. That's the kind of punching power that man had. Ridiculous punching power. But if I go back to listen to like the greats who spoke about the punching power of Ernie Shavers, it's kind of sad because I don't think Ken Norton was ever asked that, because Ken Norton was famously knocked out by George Foreman in 1973 when they fought in Venezuela, and he was also knocked out. But he's knocked out quicker because he's knocked out in one round. Well, he stopped in one round, but he was down twice, and then Mills Lane was the referee for that fight. Mills Lane stopped the fight. So when we look at that, we're saying like, well, then who punched harder? And I don't think Ken Norton was ever asked that question. Well, I don't, because I've watched a lot of tapes. I haven't seen it. But what I am saying is that Earnie Shavers did it quicker than what George Foreman did, because he done him in a round, and he done him bad in a round. And it was also a fight where he went in to the fight as an underdog. This at the time when Earnie Shavers got the chance to fight Ken Norton. Earnie Shavers was brought in as, a tough test, but they were still looking for the rematch between Larry Holmes and Ken Norton. As you remember, Larry Holmes and Ken Norton actually fought for Ken Norton's title, a title that Ken Norton never ever won in the ring. What happened was Leon Spinks in 78 defeated Muhammad Ali. He was a WBA and WBC champion. But they wanted Leon Spinks, the WBC wanted Leon Spinks to defend against his mandatory contender. And the mandatory contender for the title was Ken Norton, but he was contracted to fight a rematch with Ali. If Leon Spinks had fought Ken Norton to defend his title, he'd have got something like $600,000. Remember, this is 1978. But he got a contracted $3 million to fight Ali in the return. So what would you have taken? So Leon Spinks absconded with the WBC crown. And when he absconded with the WBC crown, he put that to one side. He vacated that crown. To fight Ali. Ali then beats him for the WBA crown. Ali famously becomes the first man ever in history to win a world title, to win a world heavyweight crown 3 times. Then he retires. When Ali retires, the WBC crown is then contested, not retired, just before Ali retired. The WBC crown is contested by Larry Holmes and Ken Norton in 1978. What was that? That was in the spring of 78. And when he fights, Ken Norton and Larry Holmes fight, that historic fight, which is incredible, which is one of the best heavyweight fights ever, over 15 rounds. And then what happens is Holmes wins that fight, and that's voted as one of the greatest fights ever in the heavyweight division. When Holmes wins that fight, Ken Norton keeps on fighting. Ken Norton ends up fighting Earnie Shavers, and in that fight against Earnie Shavers was brought in as like a tough test, but you ain't gonna win. He comes out and bangs out Ken Norton in one round. Then he gets the shot at Larry Holmes for the WBC crown. I remember these two men fought previously a year and a half before that fight. And in a year and a half before that fight, when they do fight, Larry Holmes beats Earnie Shavers on points, but it was a very, very hard fight for Larry Holmes. It wasn't easy. It was a very hard fight for him. But Holmes comes out victorious. And then they have a rematch. And the rematch went no joke. Now I'll say to you, if you ain't watched that, go and watch that fight. Yeah, I mean, go, like, if I could put up in the comment section like the link to that fight, go and watch Holmes versus Earnie Shavers' second fight for the WBC crown. And that fight was in Vegas, and that was just a horrible fight. Watch the right hand that Earnie Shavers hits Larry Holmes with that if that was anybody else, I'd have knocked out. There's only 2 men that are not in the heavyweight division that I believe that would have taken that shot. Larry Holmes had one of the, if not the best recuperative powers in boxing, because Larry Holmes could get hit the canvas and wake up, then get up and continue fighting. It's rare that you're going to see fighters like that now today. But you know what? We've seen Tyson Fury do that as well. We have seen Tyson Fury do that. But I'm saying Larry Holmes was a G because Larry Holmes got back up. Larry Holmes continued fighting, and he wound up stopping Ernie Shavers. And that stoppage, it was like prior to the fight. Howard Cosell was saying that um, in the pre-fight, you were saying that Ernie Shavers got dog in him, and then Larry Holmes replied, "Yeah, he's got dog. He's got Doberman Pinscher in him because Larry Holmes knew that he was in a very very tough fight. He was in a hard fight. He was in a fight that was draining. I mean, it was when you think back of that era of men, like most of them have gone. Adrian Waters, Randolph Tex Cobb, and Ernie Shavers. I remember the Ring magazine did an article on that, and it was, what was it? The hooker versus the puncher or something like that. I think that was the title page of it, right? I remember reading that as a kid. I think that was like, about 1988. They did that. They did that article. I remember reading that, and they were talking about Randolph Tex Cobb versus Ernie Shavers. Because Ernie Shavers was that guy. He was like a do or die guy. He got into fights, and if he don't blast you out, then he could get blasted out, or he could get appointed. Famously, like his fight with Ron Lau. How Ron Lau got up. Go watch that fight. Ernie Shavers, there's some classic fights that this man was in. Ernie Shavers, Ron Lau. Ron Lau was never had no real amateur experience because he ended up going to jail. But when he did fight Ron Lau versus Ernie Shavers, the shot that Shavers hit Ron Lau with the right hand that hit him, that made him go down, you thought like this guy wasn't gonna get up. But he did get up. He boxed very smart, and he ends up stopping Ernie Shavers. Ernie Shavers didn't quit, just brushed himself off, and came back again. And what I'm saying, like, that was the time because Ernie Shavers was the first boxer of high profile that Don King had. So Don King was his manager up to about 76. What's this? Thank you very much, Alexander Wilson, for your $5. Saw this fight as a kid, and I thought Ray Mercer's KO of Tommy Morrison was the most disturbing KO that I ever saw. Your thoughts? I remember watching that fight. I remember the build up to Tommy Morrison versus Ray Mercer for Ray Mercer's WBO heavyweight championship. The title, that title, what was that? When was that fight? I think that fight was 91, right? That title fight, because it's for the WBO. At that time, we didn't really rate the WBO. What was it? Ray Mercer beat Francisco Damiani, where he was losing on points. He throws that uppercut that skims his nose and breaks Damiani's nose, and Damiani goes down. And the famous thing was this, is like the American Mafia were trying to make, off the canvas, Assalamu alaikum, the American Mafia at the time were trying to make, because Mike Tyson was on the comeback trail, right? They were trying to make Damiani versus Mike Tyson. So this Italian versus Mike Tyson for the heavyweight championship of the world. That's what they're trying to do. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Remember, Tyson ended up going back into jail. But then Tyson was also proposed to fight Evander Holyfield, and then he pops his rib, and then after that, Mike Tyson gets done for the sexual assault of Desiree Washington, right? Which Mike Tyson up to this day still proclaims innocence. And if you read the story behind it, then I would thought that Mike was innocent as well. But it is what it is. But when Tommy Morrison fought Ray Mercer, I had this conversation this week with Tunde Ajayi. For combination punches in the heavyweight division, I'm going to be real with this one here. For combination punches, right? And eye-catching shots, you're going to have to wake up very early in the morning to show me a heavyweight that threw better inside combinations than Tommy Morrison. Go on, I'll wait. You come and tell me now. This guy did. I'm talking like sharp. How he put them together, the punch dexterity. You're gonna have to wake up very early in the morning and tell me and show me somebody that put punches better than Tommy Morrison. Balfour said Don King was a good con man. He wasn't a good con man. Don King, whatever he was doing, if he was a con or not a con, Don King was absolutely excellent. I'm just being real. I mean, Don King was excellent. He was actually good for the sport as well. What's this? Adrian Waters says, "Big up Spence and R.I.P. Ernie Shavers. Tex Cobb was a problem. I see him take super punishment against Larry Holmes." Randolph Tex Cobb, he's an actor now, isn't he? He's been in quite a few films. He's been in The Golden Child. He's been in loads of films. He's been in a couple of films with Eddie Murphy as well. And he's always played like the tough bad guy. Randall's Tex Cobb, yeah, he was a problem. And that was the last fight called by Howard Cosell. I think they fought in '83, I believe, right? And Howard Cosell just had enough after that because it was a very boring 15-round fight. Larry Holmes actually played with Randolph Tex Cobb. And the thing where Larry Holmes got a lot of criticism in that fight is because Larry Holmes didn't up the pace on him, didn't up it to try and cause a stoppage. He just completely outboxed him. And it was a kind of boring fight. But if you go and watch it now through technical eyes, it's actually a technical fight. But it was boring. We move forward. Someone's trying to put it up on the screen now. We move forward. What's that? iBoxing Hub. My favorite punch in boxing was the famous Morrison uppercut, left hook combination. That thing was brutal. And I totally agree. It was brutal. How Tommy Morrison used to put combinations together. Seriously. Wow. And I know business what anyone's saying. Tommy Morrison was bad. He was a badass combination puncher. He couldn't really take it on the chops that much. But the man had ridiculous heart. Ridiculous heart. Bernard Tekikoran says, when I first saw Joe Joyce, he reminded me of Tex Cobb, LOL. You know what? You're laughing, yeah? But Bernard, I actually can see that comparison. Now that you said it, I do. I actually kind of see that comparison. Because, and this is no disrespect to Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce is very deceptive because, he does, what's that? Brazilian jiu-jitsu thing, Caballero kind of. His multi-neural skills are a lot better when he's doing other stuff than when he's boxing. What's happened is Joe Joyce has learned a methodical style of boxing where he's contained and he's also containing energy and he doesn't waste shots neither. So when you look at like someone like a Joe Joyce, you're saying to yourself, well, you know what? But I can actually see the resemblance between him and Randolph Tex Cobb. I can see it. I really can. What did it say here? Tommy would have been great, but got sidetracked by women and drugs. iBoxing. I agree, but it's very, very difficult that, remember, by the time that he turned professional, he was in a Rocky movie. Right? So when that happened for him, it was like he's a superstar. And because he was a superstar, it all went pear-shaped for him. 1 second, gentlemen. Yep. What else? I'm trying to go through these comments now. I'm trying to go through these comments. Yep. Going back to Earnie Shavers. And we have to go back to him because the man's passed away. If Earnie Shavers was around today, he'd have been a big problem. Because fighters from the 70s had more fluidity than the fighters that we have now in the 2020s. Fighters of the 70s really did know how to throw hands compared to the fighters that we have today. I would say the only heavyweight that really knows how to throw hands that is reminiscent to the old school fighters is actually Tyson Fury. Usyk is very good, but Usyk throws from a southpaw position, and he's not reminiscent of past fighters, to be real. Right. Here we go. Alexander Wilson, thank you for the $5. RIP Ernie Shavers. I think Burt Cooper was one of the most underrated power punchers of all time. He almost KO'd Holyfield and Michael Moore out of there. You know what? I was speaking about this earlier today, and saying like a lot of the guys who were around at the time of Earnie Shavers studiously avoided him. There were certain guys that didn't, like Jerry Corey. When Jerry Corey went in there, Jerry Corey beat him. Jerry Corey could take a whooping. Jerry Corey, you could punch that guy all day. He wouldn't even budge. He was super uber tough. He was just tough. But when you look at someone like a Burt Cooper was kind of studiously avoided. I remember when Burt Cooper got his first loss. I believe it was in 1987 against Carl the Truth Williams. And Carl the Truth Williams boxed him. But everyone was talking at that time that Burt Cooper was very Mike Tyson-esque. And the rumors are that Burt Cooper was actually Joe Frazier's son, because Joe Frazier was like this big ladies man. Like he was Joe Frazier was everywhere, allegedly, right? So the talk was like, that was his son. That was the talk. But, is what it is. But he was very, very similar to how he would box. He was very similar to a Joe Frazier style, and he was a good fighter. But he weren't the biggest of heavyweights. But I remember when he fought Evander Holyfield, in 91, he did have Evander Holyfield gone, but then it was also the fact of like, Evander Holyfield was due to fight Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson ends up going on this rape charge. Then Mike Tyson was like, they were without an opponent. So there was without an opponent, and it was a kind of rush job in getting Burt Cooper in to fight Evander Holyfield. And I believe that fight was in Georgia as well. I think it was in Evander Holyfield's hometown. And when he catches Evander Holyfield, and Evander Holyfield goes into the ropes, he goes out into the ropes, yeah, he was gone. And the way that he clumped Michael Moore as well, that was another vicious punch. But you know what? He didn't complete the job. But I would turn around and say this: like, he was a very, very good fighter. A very good fighter. But it was an up and down fighter. When it was his day to perform, he would really, really perform. But But God rest his soul, because he passed away a few years ago. So God rest Burt Cooper's soul. But he was a very good fighter, man. Very, very good fighter. And he was a vicious puncher. There was a guy called, was it Willie Dewitt? I think it was Willie Dewitt, the Canadian. And this is when I properly got to see him on ITV. So this fight must have been about 86, 87. And yeah, he knocks out this brother who was like a decorated amateur, but he knocks him out viciously with a left hook. And then from there, we just knew like smoking Burt Cooper was raw, very, very raw. Let me just read out some more of these questions up here. What we got up in there? Steve Bailey, he had an epic tussle with Ron Lau. Yeah, I covered that fight, and that is a wicked fight. Yeah, that is a bad boy fight. Yeah, that is a bad boy fight. That is a Balfour. That is a really good question, you know. Why didn't Ernie Shavers fight Joe Frazier? Here's a talk. The talk is this. Ernie Shavers were brought into camp for Ali at Deer Lake in 1975, I believe. And the talk is that Ernie Shavers got sacked from being Ali's sparring partner because allegedly he's meant to have floored Ali in the third round of their spar. And Ali believed that he became cute, but he got fired. That's the talk. Joe Frazier in 75 has the Thriller Manila with Ali. Who was that? I believe that was like October of 75 they fight. And then Joe Frazier kind of dipped. So there wasn't that many big fights there for Joe Frazier because Joe Frazier just wanted the big fights and the big money fights. So he got the big money fight, and the big money fight was a return rematch with George Foreman. And he comes up second best in that again. It was like there's certain styles make fights, and like there's the physicalities of George Foreman. George Foreman was just a bit too big for Joe Frazier. Hit a bit too hard. If you remember in that fight, I think that fight was in the Garden as well. I think that was in Madison Square Garden. Joe Frazier balls off his hair as well, and goes in ball head. But he came up second best in that fight. So it's kind of crazy, like how to be maneuvered. Ernie Shavers was a very dangerous man. So therefore, it would have been hard to make that fight. And also, Yank Durham, who was the trainer and manager, and then he passed away, who was Joe Frazier's manager and trainer, who was very astute. And he dropped a lot of his knowledge back down onto the late great Eddie Futch, who then started to take over being manager and trainer of Joe Frazier. So styles make fights, they really do. So, George Foreman would always say, like, you never follow a puncher. The style of Joe Frazier was to come forward and bang. You know what I mean? Side to side head movement and throw that left hook. Would have been a smart thing to have put him in with somebody like an Ernie Shavers? It wouldn't have been a smart thing for him to come in there with Ernie Shavers, because it would have been maximum risk with minimum reward in that fight. So maybe that was the reason why that fight didn't happen. But it would have been a great fight. It would have been a very, very good fight. But I'm going to be real with you. I think Frazier would have beaten Ernie Shavers. But with Ernie Shavers' punch power, you never know. But I would have gone for Joe Frazier to have beaten Ernie Shavers. Very tenacious, man. And you've been on it. But I would say to you guys this. I can't remember the year that the fight was. But Roy Tiger Williams, who Larry Holmes said, like, he would have done everything in the world to stay away from this guy, right? But ended up fighting him to try and get his way through. Roy Williams, back then, we're talking in the mid-70s, Roy Williams was 6'5" with 232 pounds. He was a big guy. And he had combinations as well. He could throw like triple left hooks and stuff. He's a very tall guy, but he kind of hit you like that. Him and Ernie Shavers fight, right? And that fight was no joke whatsoever. If that fight would have happened today, I think it's like round 9. One of the best rounds I've ever seen. Because Ernie Shavers was gone. And I mean, not just a little bit gone. If that was today, that fight would have been stopped. It was allowed to continue. What would happen is Ernie Shavers was so gone, he was in the corner and the referee stopped the fight. Roy Williams thinks that he's won, but he gets a standing 8 count. While he's been given the standing 8 count, Roy Williams comes back and starts bashing him again. He's bashing him. Ernie Shavers is absolutely exhausted. He goes back on the ropes, and Ernie Shavers throws a hard jab that jerks Roy Williams. And then he like they're both knackered at this time because they've been slugging it out for like 8 rounds. He comes back, he whirls away at him, and then he hits Roy Williams. Roy Williams goes down. When Roy Williams goes down, fair play to the referee. Roy Williams gets up and the referee gives him a count. So he's been given a count. Then Shavers is ready, pounced to go after him again. And while he's given an account, Roy Williams collapses because he was concussed and the fight was stopped. So as much as I'm saying like, oh, the referee should stop the fight in favor of Roy Williams, the referee didn't stop the fight in favor of Roy Williams and allowed Roy Williams to continue fighting after he got hurt himself. And then when the referee initiated for him to continue to fight, he just collapsed because he was concussed and he was also exhausted. But a wicked fight. Go watch that fight, please. I beg. Any more questions that we got up on there? Zachariah Khan says, Spence, who is your all-time favorite boxer from the US and the UK? And this is the thing. I haven't got a favorite boxer, you know. I'm just going to keep this thing 100, right? I'm going to keep this thing 100. I cannot turn around and say it's this fighter or that fighter or all the rest of it. I love Muhammad Ali for what he stands for. I love Sugar Ray Leonard for when I was growing up. I also love Mike Tyson. I like Floyd a lot. Mike McCullum because of the Jamaican heritage I like a lot. But there's so many different fighters. So I cannot go to no one and say, right, oh, well, it's this fighter and it's that fighter and it's this fighter. Because if I did say that to you, then I'll absolutely be lying. Darren Robertson, Tundi's not here today simply because Tunney is resting. And that's why he's resting. Right, Stamina for Sale, big up. This is Gary or one of them. Could be Tundi's right there. Spencer is the most knowledgeable man in boxing and people need to give him his flowers now. And by flowers, I mean Snapchat money. You know what? We're getting a little pieces up on here already, and I'm grateful for whatever we get. But this was just a quick one just to commemorate and honor the great man in Earnie Shavers for the simple fact that he passed away. I said that you know what I mean, I'd be remiss if we don't do anything. Oh, it's actually Tunney that's posted up the comments. But thank you very much, Tun. Now, but on this thing, I'm just keeping this thing 100. If we were not to speak about this guy, Earnie Shavers, or even to mention him, yep, John Hope, yep, actually, Ernie passed away yesterday, right? So he was 78 years old. If we weren't to mention it, then I would feel remiss by it. And I would just like to go split out a little history on it. And that's that, because just to honor the guy, and it'd be wrong of the fighters' right not to go and do that. I haven't really seen other people talk about Ernie, but whereas I used to watch a lot of his fights, so as a kid, because when I was a kid, we would always hear Earnie Shavers is the hardest puncher of all time. Earnie Shavers is the hardest puncher of all time. Cash, yes, big up Spence for honoring the legends. Have to honor these guys because these men, these great men, and it is now a dying breed because you go check this one out now. Ali's gone. Frazier's gone. Norton's gone. You know, these great men of that era, they've chipped out, you know, which is Ron Lyle's gone. You know what I mean? Ron Lyle, excellent fighter. When we go through the list of these men, these great men, they've all chipped out. You know what I mean? And because they've all chipped out, we got to honor them. iBoxing, thank you very much. iBoxing Hub says this is why this is the best boxing channel. And you know what? I'm just grateful to be able to speak boxing. You know what I mean? Yeah, I would have loved for Tunney to be on it and go back and forth. But on the reels, just to the matter of fact that we are honoring this great man. We are touching on the base of this great man. Bobby Wright, thank you for the flowers. Thank you for the flowers. But Bobby Wright's a man that always passes over the flowers anyway, and that's why I'm very, very grateful to you. But yeah, I'm giving you like 5 more minutes because I've spoken for 39 minutes on this subject, and none of it has been from no Wikipedia page or anything else. But bloody, I should be going on them things anyway. That. Big up for the flowers, Barry Cobbs. Hi, brother Spence. So much love. Thank you very much, Barry. John Hope says Ernie was a very hard man, and he was. He was nicknamed the Acorn from Muhammad Ali after their fight in 1977, and that's also because he had a bald head. Anthony, what's that? Christopher Anthony. I love Tunney, but yet the knowledge. That's the whole point. He's not meant to be the knowledge. If Tunney was the knowledge, then I wouldn't be needed. You know what I mean? Tundi is the master genius and the strategist. That's Babatunde Ajayi. You know, like I keep on telling you guys, Babatunde Ajayi has got more combinations than a safe breaker. Right? Seriously. Adrian Waters, a whole heap of knowledge from the knowledge. Thank you very much, my brother. Mr. Khan, I ain't got no opinion on the guy that Floyd's fighting in Japan in some exhibition. But what I do know is that Floyd is the smartest man in boxing history. Because I know he ain't doing that for no less than 15 million. So we got to just big up the fact what Floyd Mayweather was doing. Seriously. Because he's fighting some also rans now. Some little exhibition things and picking up mad money. Rams, big up yourself. Thank you so much for the 449. Respect Uncle Spence. Thank you for the knowledge. Rest in eternal peace, Ernie. And I'll just, when I'm saying like to rest in peace, I met Earnie Shavers. And he's an absolutely nice man, you know. Really, hey man, how you doing? Everything all right? You good? He was just a very, very happy-go-lucky man. And allegedly, this was a talk, that when he retired, that Don King was giving him $100,000 a year. That was a talk. I don't know if it was true or not, but that was the talk. Balfour Lucy says, are you doing the watch along tomorrow, Spencer? I and Babatunde Ajayi, the hype, you know what I mean, the man from the south, are doing the fight along tomorrow with the incredible, you know what I mean, color commentary from Babatunde Ajayi and the mid rounds breakdowns coming from me. So yes, you'll be doing that, no doubt. Cash, does the Illuminati pagan exist in boxing? Any closed circles? No, it doesn't. What I do believe is this: if you want something hard enough that you're ready to sweat blood and tears from it, then you go get it. If the Illuminati and the pagan business had worked, you'd see a lot of untalented boxers become world champions and hold it for a long time. You don't see that. You can't tell me not one untalented boxer who doesn't work hard, who hasn't been a world champion for a great deal of time. It doesn't work like that. You have to be that person. You got to be that guy or that female, because female boxing is on the rise as well. Big up Clarissa Shields, who's fighting Savannah Marshall next week. I spoke to her earlier today. And Tundi, you know, the second thing she said was to say hi, Uncle Spence. You know what she said? Where's Tundi? She told me where she's training as well. And she's saying that we got to come down and see her train. So she's going to be training down at the secret gym, Richard Williams gym. That's what she's going to be doing her bits and bobs. But that's what she said. Ralph Dawkins, Combo Radio. Thanks for honoring the man. He brought an air of danger with those heavy hands. And he brought more than an air of danger. You know what I mean? Because we had the Dark Destroyer, Nigel Benn, but the Dark Destroyer's name actually came from the Black Destroyer. Because the Black Destroyer was Earnie Shavers. That was Earnie Shavers' nickname before Ali renamed him the Acorn, because he was an absolutely tough nut to crack. When he fought Ali fought the last 3 rounds of their 15-round competition in 1977. Ali fought those last rounds concussed. Because the punching power of this guy, it was ridiculous punching power. But I've watched that fight many times, and it is a very, very boring fight. And I mean very boring fight. When I was an amateur, like to keep fit, I would shadow box. I would shadow box 15 rounds having that fight on VHS them days. But yeah, so I don't count. Mr. Khan says America is lacking on heavyweight champs now after all the greats they've produced. It has, because it swings roundabouts and pendulums. And if you are a big kid in America, you're 6'5", you're 250 pounds, you're gonna go play American football. That's the truth. You're not gonna say you wanna go box. Boxing's too hard for these guys. They're gonna turn around and say, right, I'm gonna go play American football. I'm gonna get a guarantee of $1 million to go turn over, and yeah, I'm gonna get drafted, and that's what they're gonna do. They're not gonna say, right, we are gonna go fight. We ain't gonna go box right now. Yeah, 15 rounds is too much, bruv. They must have been tired. Balfour, those were the days when you think about it. In those times, that's what it was. That's what it was. But yep. So I think I've touched you lot on this great man. I think I've touched enough on this great man to fight to stand out and for you guys to go and watch. Is the two fights that he has with Larry Holmes, but more so the 79 fight that Earnie Shavers has in a rematch for the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the World, where he floors Larry Holmes with a right hand in the 7th round. Just go watch that. Watch how hard this man was. Also, a never stand out fight for you to go and watch. Never stand out fight for you to go and watch is when he stops Joe Bugner in 2 rounds. Never stand out fight for you to go watch is his fight when he fights Muhammad Ali for the World Heavyweight Championship in 1976. Just watch those fights. Sorry, 77. Go and watch those fights. Because when you watch those fights, you're realizing that you weren't just dealing with an ordinary man. You was dealing with a different kind of toughness. Thank you very much, Off the Canvas, for your £5 flowers for spreading knowledge and wisdom. I'm so grateful for the £5. Right. John Hope, you just go watch it. You can't believe that the guy just got up from that shot. Smasher, you're an idiot. And if Tunney just put that up there, you should get blocked. I don't even need to answer that nonsense. I'm a lover of boxing, my friend, irrespective of who the participants is. If you are excellent at the noble art, I don't business what skin tone you are. I'm propsing you. I'm saluting you, and that's the truth. And that is why silly people don't understand. Like 2 of my greatest fighters of all time, Gene Tunney was a technician, an incredible technician, world heavyweight champion in the 20s. Famously beat Gary, famously beat Jack Dempsey twice, and there was like the rumors of the long count. And actually that was the only fight. It was at 1923. That was the only fight that we had, a heavyweight championship fight that was over 10 rounds. A lot of people don't know that, but I've just educated you again. How about that one? Right, but Gene Tunney, one of my favorite fighters. Gene Tunney was greatly studied by Muhammad Ali. Gene Tunney was actually a light heavyweight. He was the All-American light heavyweight champion, national light heavyweight champion. He had 5 hellacious fights with Harry Greb. People say that Harry Greb is one of the greatest fights to ever do it. He beats Harry Greb, 3 out of 5 with 1 draw. Go and watch this guy. The guy was incredible. And I mean, absolutely incredible. Go and watch Gene Tunney. You want to know the fine mastery and artistry of boxing? You go and watch this guy, and you'll know. Yeah, he was the absolute real deal. Absolute real deal. He's one of my favorite fighters. And then Willie Pep, one of my favorite fighters. Skill, scientific mastery. I'd watch this guy, and he'd give me the wow. I'll be watching him, and I'm like, he was the wow. So I'm a respecter of the arts. I don't care who is demonstrated, or your skin tone or what is being demonstrated, as long as you are demonstrating the finer arts of what I am accustomed to appreciating, then I'm a fan of yours. So that's nonsense. I keep on telling people again, there's only one race. There's only one race, and that's the human race. And now Tundi's coming in there. Spencer, who never lied, you do have more knowledge in your black toe than most of these guys. And I don't want to go show you the black toe again, but I keep on telling Tunney that I'm not Nigerian. You got the black toes, brother. The amount of sugar that this boy. And the next thing, I've never seen no one eat as much salt and sugar as Tundi Ajay. Seriously. I remember I was like, Tunney's got that, but you see it in his little bossy kitchen that he's got. You got that percolator machine, yeah? And in the percolator machine that he's got there, I always ask him, when he's making his sugar, does he want to put some coffee on it? Paul L. Finance, big up the knowledge, Spencer. Hope you're well. We just jumped it there. Hope you're well, my brother. R.I.P. Earnie Shavers. Rest in power. And you know what? And we usually say this as well, right? We say to guys like to go rest in power. But I'm going to be real. Earnie Shavers has to rest in power because his punching power was like the bubonic plague. It was ridiculous. I just want people to realize that. Thank you very much, Rams. But you know what? The thing about it is this is like, I don't need to answer these idiots because you know, I mean, me and Tundi's gathered the tricks already, so I don't need to give these idiots any props or anything else like this. Because you know, when you're growing or your things are growing, what will happen is at the same time when you're growing, there are people that will try to fight you down. And Baba Tundi says that the body needs salt. Brother, you are full of it. I'll tell you that now, man. This boy eats salt like no one's business. And I ain't giving nobody no negativity. You can't get no energy from me anyway. But it is what it is. And we don't need to answer them. Yep. And I don't want to spoil the fact of how great Earnie Shavers was. If Earnie Shavers was around today, and I mean being around today, Earnie Shavers wouldn't have been 6'1" because he's only 6'1". Earnie Shavers most probably would have been about 6'4", 6'5". If Earnie Shavers was around today with his knockout ratio and percentage, because at the time he had the highest knockout ratio of wins of any heavyweight of all time. I think that's been surpassed now by Deontay Wilder in percentage-wise, but he hasn't got the number of knockouts that this man has got. Then if we was to go look at that, then we'd have to say to yourself that this man, if he was around today, most probably with a lack of skills and talent that we have, will most probably be a world heavyweight champion. If Earnie Shavers was around today, could he have picked up a title? I reckon he would have been able to pick up a title because titles are so fragmented. We've got 4 of them. He must be able to pick up one of them, especially with that punching power. And I'm saying again to you that he also knocked out great men. You don't believe me? Go and watch his fight with Jimmy Ellis. Jimmy Ellis was the former WBA heavyweight champion who beat Jerry Corey for the title and then loses it in his second defense to Joe Frazier. At the time, Joe Frazier was the New York Athletic. Yeah, he was a New York Athletic heavyweight champion, and then he meets at a box-off tournament, and he ends up fighting in with that 70. That was 60, 68, 69, 69. Right? He ends up fighting Joe Frazier. Jimmy Ellis was from Louisville, Kentucky, the same place as Muhammad Ali. Jimmy Ellis was very close to Ali as well. They were very, very good. They were very, very good friends, and they end up fighting each other as well. Ali fights Jimmy Ellis. Jimmy Ellis was his first fight after losing to Joe Frazier in March of '71. But what happens here is like Jimmy Ellis becomes world heavyweight champion, loses Joe Frazier. Jimmy Ellis goes out and Jimmy Ellis fights Earnie Shavers, and Earnie Shavers knocks him out. There was also Vincento Rondon, who's a former WBA light heavyweight champion, who moved up and was fighting at heavyweight. And Ernie Shavers knocks him out as well. So that is 2 former world champions that this man knocks out. Then Ernie Shavers goes in. What was that in 1979, and he fights Ken Norton, and he does Ken Norton in 1 round. This man knocked out 3 former world champions, and 2 of them were heavyweight world champions. Ernie Shavers was a great man. Ernie Shavers was an excellent fighter, and Ernie Shavers, if he was around today, would have been a problem for anyone. Babatunde Ajayi says, right, let me get back to work. Well done, Spence. This show has been very informative and a great tribute to the legend, Ernie Shavers. Have a great evening, brother. You know what I mean? Yeah. And big up yourself, Tunney. Send some Snapchat money, brother. Right. So I might as well just take it to the hour because we got an hour left. We got hour left. We got 4 minutes left. So because we got 4 minutes left, I might as well just go give you something for the 4 minutes. Other fighters to go watch of the past who was around at that time. Right? Other fighters who go underneath the radar. What was it? A man called Max Spencer. He was a fighter. Go on YouTube. Go and check him out. You know what I mean? Zaro Foley was the next man. Go check him out. Even though he got beat by Ali, but Zaro Foley was a good fighter. Zaro Foley came over here. He beat Henry Cooper and he lost Henry Cooper. But Zaro Foley was a very, very good fighter. Certain guys that just went underneath the radar that if they're around today, there would have been a problem. There are other fighters that we could go call out. What's his name? How's his name? He just come out my head. I was just watching him the other day. I said, right, this guy was bad. Yep. Bill McCurry. Bill McCurry he was actually a gym fighter though, but he had an Ali style. He was the man that famously cut George Foreman while in Zaire when George Foreman was preparing to fight Ali, and hence why the fight got postponed for 6 weeks, right? And that was 74. Go and watch these guys. There were so many good guys. Back then, everybody could fight. There weren't no jokes. The guys there, they had fluidity, they had skill, they had boxing ability. On a contrast, Ernie Shavers had boxing ability. I'm not turning around saying he didn't have boxing ability. Ernie Shavers did have boxing ability, right? But when I'm saying like Ernie Shavers had, do I rate Corey? Sorry, Adrian Waters. Yes, I do rate Jerry Corey. Jerry Corey was a great fighter. Seriously. And I'll say to you guys, what was it? 60, what was it? 60, I think it was 68. Go and watch Jerry Corey, right? Go and watch Jerry Corey versus Joe Frazier. Their first fight for the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the World. Go and watch that fight. And if anyone want to learn infighting, I remember giving that fight to Don Charles to study infighting. That's when you say you're fighting on someone's chest. You're so close to him. It's like you're like Vicks Vapor Rub. Cleveland Williams is one of the next guys. Paul Young, you're talking a thing. Cleveland Williams, this is George Foreman saying this, because George Foreman used to spar with Cleveland Williams, right? They never ever fought. George Foreman sparred with Cleveland Williams. George Foreman said, like, Cleveland Williams was the hardest puncher he ever been with. The hardest puncher that he's ever been in with. He said, Cleveland Williams. When Cleveland Williams hit you, you knew what time it was. And also, Cleveland Williams was fast. I would say to you guys, go and watch his 2 fights that he had with Sonny Liston in 58 and 59. It was 59 or 60, yeah. 58 and 59. His 2 fights with Sonny Liston, and you know what time of day it is. There were 2 men, it was like chess, but it was chess with hard punches. Trust me on that. Go watch that fight. You watch that fight, and then you'll understand this is boxing, where 2 guys are just standing there, and it's jab, catch, jab, back. Slip, throw, right hand. That is boxing. That is highest echelons in my estimation, in my opinion. That is what boxing is all about. John Hope says Corey matched Frazier in the first fight. He certainly did, and he lost on a cut, right? And it was given, I think round 6 was given a round of the year. The round of the year by the Ring magazine. I believe so. Right. What's that? Joel says Rocky Marciano died August 31st. Ernie Shavers' birthday, August 31st. Rocky's birthday, September the 1st. Ernie dies September the 1st. RIP. And I've got to salute that. Thank you very much for that information. I didn't even know that, you know. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that. No, tell a lie, I actually did know that. Kind of Rocky Marciano died August 31st, 1971. Not, sorry, 1969 in a plane crash. The reason why that stands out for me, because Lennox Lewis in 1992 boxes Razor Ruddock on Halloween night at Earl's Court and knocks him out. So there's got to be some synergy, because the day after the death of Ernie Shavers, September the 2nd, is actually the birthday of Lennox Lewis. And I think I'm going to close the show on that one. Dream it, believe it, become it. Come on down. Thanks to every single person that has listened to the show. A massive happy birthday from The Fight Is Right to Lennox Lewis. All the great champions that have gone in the past, we have to salute these guys. We keep on doing what we're doing. Peace, two fingers. Join us tomorrow for The Fight Is Right watch along, as we have got Liam Beefy Smith in his comeback and his first fight back on Sky TV under Boxer. But the main fight that I'm really, really looking forward to is Dan Aziz versus Shakan Pitters for the British light heavyweight title. And I hope Tunney is drinking a lot of water, eating a lot of salt, and having enough sugar in his coffee. Peace, two fingers. We are out.